I'm not getting any sound. Can you hear me, Patty?
I can. I can. I'm so pleased to hear from you. I think by some method, you entered into the right party, but through a different door.
Ah,
And so we are both on. I have now. Is Alan Kay is your assistant? Is that correct?
yes. Yep.
Okay. So I'm actually going to put him. Let's see here.
It kept telling me that I had to register for an account. I was like, this cannot be right. This
No,
cannot be
so
what
we are
Patty
we are actually
intended.
broadcasting. We're broadcasting right now, and so
Okay,
we are up and running. We have about 25 attendees, and
great.
I think everyone that's in should be seeing this blue screen that is just welcoming you in. And I'm going to do a stop share. Do you have your slides ready to go?
I do.
Okay, super. Then let's both get on. And
Okay,
we
and I'm
are
going
on.
to, okay, go ahead.
All right, let me just make everything. And if you could show your video panel too. And I'm going to do a stop share on my side, and there you are.
Okay. Let's see. And when I'm all set, the share screen will be on, correct?
You have sharing rights.
There it is. Great.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic. Well, before you begin, I just want to welcome everyone to the first session in our Job Seeker series, and we are so very pleased at the Schomburg Library to welcome you and to offer the series. We have 4 wonderful programs lined up over the next few weeks, and Lauren Milligan, we're very glad that we are going to welcome not just once but twice to talk to us about how to really draft and highlight all the best qualities possible in your resume, especially during these times. And she's going to give us a little bit more in the ways of what's happening in the job searching culture right now. What are the tips that Lauren's seeing as leading Resume Day, specifically in the Chicago area, that can help us while we are all in this point of transition. So on behalf of the Schomburg Library, Lauren, I want to welcome you and thank you so much for agreeing to launch our series.
Thank you, Patty. I'm delighted to be here, and I know that I'm in very, very good, esteemed company. So I appreciate that very much. Okay, so why don't we just get started? Again, my name is Lauren Milligan. My company is ResuMAYDAY, and I am a professional resume writer and career advancement coach. And I've been doing this with ResuMAYDAY. You can see my little dog in the background. It's fruitless to try to stop her from getting on camera here. So we'll just do this right now. There you go, Gemma. Say hi to the people. Now, bye-bye. Okay. So I've been doing this for about 20 years now with Resume Day, which means I've worked with an awful lot of job seekers, employers, recruiters. I've basically been marinating myself in the employment market and the career advancement field for the past 20 years. So I know what's been going on. I know what employers are looking for, and I know that the concerns that candidates and employees have right now. So during this whole series, let me be a resource to you regarding any of your questions, even if it's slightly off topic, but still under the employment umbrella. Happy to do that. So I'm going to jump onto, let's see, here we go. And we'll go to the PowerPoint and boom. Okay. So, before I jump into the presentation, just let me say that if anybody does have any questions, you can email them to me for a conversation later. Not sure if we're able to get them during this broadcast, but I do want to be able to answer questions and such that are going to come up with all the new information that we're sharing with you. So again, let me be a resource. Happy to do it. So today we're talking about resume strategies. The following next week, the next presentation, we're going to be digging more in depth to the actual job search. Boy, a lot of things, some Google tools, all sorts of good stuff. How do you know what employers are looking for, that kind of thing. A lot about the ATS. We're going to talk very, very briefly about that today, but we'll talk more about the ATS. That's the resume robots, keyword scanners, but it all feeds in together. Okay, so we're kicking off tonight with your 2020 job search. Pandemic post-pandemic job search. And what I always like to refer to the resume as the story behind the story. The reason that I say that is because a lot of resumes, they just kind of give the surface story, and you don't really, you're not digging enough too deeply in your own career history, accomplishments, etc., to really let the employers know who you are, who they will have the benefit of working with should they choose you instead of a different candidate. So that's why I always like to keep this in mind. Think about that, the story behind the story. That's kind of my encouragement for you to just continue to dig a little deeper to tell a better story. All right, so let's start with my philosophy, the Resume Day philosophy. Quite simple, two parts to it. The resume that gets the most face time with the reader of the resume generally gets the interview. Let me explain what I mean by that. So the resume that gets the most face time with the reader, that's what I'm going to be teaching you how to do tonight, how to get um, the FaceTime, meaning the reader's eyes on your resume, on your document, instead of the candidate who applied right before or right after you. Quite frankly, we're looking to kick them out of the process by giving a resume that is so compelling and interesting and attention grabbing that you get the attention. When that happens, when you have something on your resume that kind of just bothers them enough in a good way where they want to know more about you, that's the FaceTime. That's the FaceTime that we're looking to create. Okay. So really your resume is all about creating FaceTime. That is what's going to get you the interview. Now, if we were doing, a series about interviewing and such, I would follow up this part of my philosophy with the candidate that gets the most FaceTime at the interview generally gets the job offer. Okay. So as we go forward here, keep that in mind. You're looking to create FaceTime first on the resume and then in the interview and the follow-up meetings, et cetera, et cetera. But it's all about creating that FaceTime, being visible in the right way to the employers. The next part of my Resume Day philosophy, I love this little guy. He's probably like 30 by now, but no wimps allowed. Okay. What do I mean by that? I do not mean that you have to be the most outspoken or braggy or loud. That's not what I'm talking about. By no wimps allowed, I mean the tools that we have as job seekers to connect with employers and the tools that employers have to connect with job seekers have evolved and changed so much, certainly in the past 20 years, but even in the past 15, 10, 5 years. These tools, thanks to technology, they keep coming at us and keep evolving, and so it's your job as a candidate to learn what the tools are, to capitalize on them, to grab them and say, this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to have a phenomenal LinkedIn profile, or I'm going to learn all I can about the ATS so I've got the right resume. Whatever it is, different websites, etc. Knowing which websites are worth their time versus others that are the time wasters. Getting yourself involved in learning about all the tools that are available, that to me is no wimps allowed, rather than just sitting back passively or conducting the same job search that you conducted 15, 20, 25 years ago. All right. Always keeping yourself modern and updated on the tools. That's no wimps allowed. So let's start with the first thing that the first thing that catches a person's eye when anyone looks at your resume is the actual format, the layout that you've chosen. Okay, generally there are two resume formats, three, kind of four if we get into the informational or graphic formats, but typically two main formats. The first one is reverse chronological. That's what we're going to talk about here in a moment. And the second one is a functional or a skills-based resume. A lot of people have this one, especially if they have some let's call them asterisks at some point in their employment history. I'm going to show you an example of what I mean by a functional format so that you'll see what I'm talking about. And I'm also going to tell you why that's not the format that you want. So again, I've been writing resumes for a little over 20 years, and I'll say, I think in that time, I've maybe written 2 functional formats, and both of those were followed up with a chronological format. So for me, a functional format is never the answer. And it's not because what I like to see, it's because what the employers want to see. It's because the employers read resumes a very specific way, and chronological is really the only format that works with that expectation. Okay, so chronological format, we're going to start with your contact information, summary, and then your most recent position, and then work backwards from there. 10, 15, maybe 20 years, not much more than that. And even 20 is a little bit of a stretch, but just so you've got an idea of what I'm talking about when I say chronological. Now, why chronological? As you can see here on the screen, chronological resumes, they're easy to follow. Everyone knows what they're looking at. The most recent to the second most recent, here's where the education is going to be, etc. They're easy to find the information. They're easy to follow, easy to find the information. And this last one, sometimes it makes me wince a little saying it, but it's true. It's true for most employers. Recent equals relevant. So they want to see your most relevant and recent information as it pertains to them. And that's where they're going to find it. Now, some of the things that we can talk about at the end of this is, well, what happens if you are going back to a job that you held maybe 10 years ago? Absolutely. I've handled all of this and more, but every single time I've done it with a reverse chronological format. Okay, the functional resume just really never is the answer. All right, I like to think of the resume format as a beautiful, organized closet, such as this one. You know where every single thing is that you want. Skirt, blouse, trousers, whatever it is, you know exactly where it's going to be. So let's take a look really quickly. This is a very edited version of a functional resume. Now, obviously, I took the candidate's name off of it. So the contact information is removed. There's no education, that was removed too. But just for the purposes of taking a quick, easy look at the functional format, basically, it will start off with a summary statement, or in this case, an objective statement, a summary of achievements. That usually is the part where every candidate puts the most work and attention when they're working off of a functional format. And that's because, as you can see, the work history below, there are no bullets underneath. It's just a quick table with the position, the employer, and the to and from dates. No bullets underneath. This is a functional format. Now, if you're not familiar with the functional format, you may be thinking, well, why would someone opt for this format? Again, I don't recommend them anytime, so this is not an endorsement, but I will say that candidates choose a functional format if they have a gap in employment, or if they are changing industries. Maybe they went to school back for another degree mid-career, and now they're changing industries. Maybe they've just been out of work for a long time. Maybe it's a mom looking to get back into the workforce after raising her kids. It could be a job hopper where there are a lot of different jobs in a short period of time. Could be a lot of those different reasons. Here's the problem. What you're looking at right now, this is not how an employer wants to read a resume. They want to know what you did, where you did it in the same breath, okay, in the same view. So taking a look at this resume here, we've got the summary of achievements. Now, this person sold um, senior living properties, apartments, condos, etc., in senior living facilities. Now, the very first accomplishment that was on her resume under some summary of achievements, overall career sales in senior housing exceeds $40 million. Now, that sounds impressive, but is it? We don't know. As compared to what and how much time? Maybe the person who is actually the top person sold 100 million. Well, that kind of makes that 40 million look like, okay, what's the story there? We don't know. We have nothing to compare that to. That's why that's a little iffy. The next, summary of achievement. And this is a real resume, by the way, of a client of mine. This was her before resume, and she gave me permission to use it. Her next accomplishment or achievement: constant focus on client care and customer service. Well, guess what? That's not an achievement. It's not an accomplishment. It's like saying you wake up on time every day. It's just something that you're expected to do. So that's not an achievement, doesn't belong there. The next one: successfully closed 25 sales in 4.5 months, increasing occupancy rate from 37 to 92%. That's fantastic. What year did this person do this? Okay, so we don't know. We don't know if this was in 2020, 2019, or taking a look at the resume, it could have been in 1998. Does that matter? You bet it does. You bet it does. Employers want to know that, think about a bell curve. They want to know on which part of the bell curve that you're at. And if you are at the very end, low part of it, that might not be the person that they're looking for. So years would matter there. And again, all of these, they belong in bullets underneath the actual position where the person generated these accomplishments in the first place. For that reason, a functional resume just doesn't work. Okay, so let's go on from there. Let's talk about objective statements versus summary statements. And this is a really important thing to me, because I will tell you this: I do believe that a well-written summary statement is the most important part of a resume. As crazy as that sounds, I think that a summary statement can be even more important than the bullets that are written under each employer, because a well-written summary statement is going to entice the person to read the rest of your resume. A well-written summary statement will get them excited to know more about who you are. Okay, so I'm going to go through some examples here, but let's take a difference between the two. An objective statement: generally, it's going to be one-sided. It's going to be so narrow. I want to be an accountant, or it's going to be too vague. I'm an expert at numbers and data crunching. Well, what do you want to do? So an objective statement, and generally it's more of the, to obtain a challenging position in a growing company where I can utilize my skills and education and blah, blah, blah. Well, employers know that you're not giving them any interesting or enticing information. On the other hand, a summary statement can be 3 to 5 sentences, should be 3 to 5 sentences, that easily differentiates you from all other candidates, shows how you are better than your best competition. And what I mean by that, now a lot of people are like, wait a minute, how can one person be better at everything than another at a job? I didn't say than everything, though. Pick one thing. All you have to do is pick one part of your job that you love to do, that you're great at doing, and capitalize on that. Okay, that can make the difference. Focus on that one thing and make that part of your core message. Okay, that's how you start branding yourself. A lot of people talk about you need to have your personal brand. Well, this is actually how you get there. Find that one thing that you love to do, that you're really good at doing, and then make that part of your message. Make it part of your elevator pitch. Make it part of your LinkedIn profile. Make it part of your resume summary. Bring it up in the interview, etc. Once you start doing that, now you've created your personal brand around something that you're really good at and something that you love to do. One of the things that confuses candidates on the resume is the difference between buzzwords and keywords, because everybody knows your resume has to have keywords, right? Unfortunately, there are people who get those keywords mixed up with buzzwords. So we want to make sure, I want to go through a list here and basically just identify what's a buzzword versus a keyword, because yes, you do want to have keywords, to the extent that I'll tell you this: keywords to a resume writer is like salt to a chef. You can't do your job. Chef can't do her job without salt. And as a resume writer, I can't do my job without keywords. And you, as writing your own resume, you can't write your own resume without those keywords. Okay, but let's make sure that we know the difference. So here's a common list of buzzwords that are on a lot of resumes, Almost every single resume that comes across my desk the first time generally has at least one, typically more than that, on their resume. Hardworking. Everyone is hardworking, right? It doesn't belong. It's never going to be a keyword that employers look for. Dedicated, seasoned. Now, this one's kind of interesting. Don't know if everyone is aware of what the word seasoned means. Some people think it really expresses a deep understanding, experience, just at a higher level. No, it means old. Seasoned on a resume, it just refers to the person's age. That's it. Okay, so no reason to use it. Loyal, results oriented, highly motivated. The last one, it's not a typical acronym, but to fit in this circle, finish projects on time and under budget. You probably said it with me, right? All of these are buzzwords that people put on their resume thinking this is really important. The employer needs to know this about me. I promise you, no one has ever received an interview or a job offer because they had the word hardworking on their resume, or because they told the employer they finished projects on time and under budget. Those just aren't the things that turn heads like candidates may think. So instead, I pulled up a list here of two different positions. The first one is in graphic design. The second one is a marketing manager. I created a list here of the actual keywords that employers hiring a graphic designer or a marketing manager would be looking for and plugging into the ATS. That means that these are the resume keywords that people in these two industries should be listing out on their resume, spattering them through the summary statement, all the bullets, etc. And take a look at graphic designer, Adobe, agency, artist, branding, concepts, creative, design, digital. All of these are words, the nouns and verbs, the tech tools that directly have to do with that job. Same thing with marketing manager, branding, focus groups, media relations, new product launch. All of these are going to be, these words have nothing to do with hardworking, loyal, dedicated, all of that, right? These are the actual nouns and verbs. Okay. So when we're talking about keywords, this is what we're talking about. Now, where did I get this list? Quite easily, I'll tell you this. I did a Google search. This is one of the ways that we can start using, bringing in an internet search to really help you pump up your resume a little bit. All you have to do is open a search box and type in resume keywords in quotes, and then marketing manager or graphic designer or tax accountant, customer service rep, whatever your position is, resume keywords in quote, type that position. You're going to see an awful lot of different websites pull up and just start going through them. Now, here's the important caveat to that. A lot of times, the first couple results, if you see that they're put out by universities, it might be a good list, but there's a very good chance it's going to be more of an entry level list. If you're at an entry level period in your career, then that's fine. But if you're more senior than that, you probably want to steer clear of the university list. What I'm talking about is this: a lot of universities and their career departments for students, they'll put out different resources to help students with their resumes. So they're putting lists out for the students at the student level. So again, if you are more senior than that, you're going to look at this list and say, this is all stuff that I did 10, 15 years ago. Those are not the keywords that you want to use. You want to make sure that the keywords that you're using on your resume are appropriate to your job level. Okay, so if you're more senior, just bypass all the university lists and go on a couple down. There are a lot of different websites that give this information. So I promise you, every single job and industry out there, you'll be able to find some good keywords. But let me give you another kind of a little cheater tip here. The other place that you can go to find keywords for your industry, for your specific role, look up people who do that same type of job on LinkedIn. Find people who do the same job on LinkedIn and look up their profile. Read their summary. What words do they use to describe themselves and their industry? Scroll on down a little bit to the endorsements and skills section. Quite frankly, the endorsements, the skills section, it's almost like a resume keyword list right there. Everyone is entitled to, I want to say 50 keywords there, right? So take a look. And, whether you're doing this at the beginning of writing your resume or you've written your resume and now you just want to double check to make sure that you have a healthy list of keywords, go ahead and do it then too. But either way, you have to do something, whether it's a Google search through different websites, whether it's LinkedIn profiles, whatever it is, double check that you have the keywords on there. Terribly important. Just remember, it's like salt to a chef. It's required. Okay. So let's talk about what I call a human voice summary. I'm going to give you some before and examples. Maybe I'll read them. I know everyone's kind of reading these, but I'll skim through them a little bit. I've got through the examples. But I write what I call a human voice summary. Okay, you're going to see examples, like I said. And when I write summaries for people, I like them to be in first person. So this is going to be a very self-narrative paragraph. And here are some questions that I ask my clients when I'm writing their summaries for them. What do you love about your work? That's first and foremost. We want to really focus on those aspects of your job that gives you energy and joy. What are your short and your long-term career goals? Where are you looking to take your career in this industry? Could be some good information there. And then this last one, and I love this question. I always get great responses, and I always learn something whenever I ask this question. Is there something of value in your background that's unique to the normal industry route? A lot of times, one thing that I have emphatically learned over the years, unfortunately, is that recruiters have a way of making candidates feel like if they took any kind of left turn in their career, and there might be a job or two that just doesn't really fit with the normal route of a particular industry, recruiters will often advise candidates to leave that information off. I think that's crazy. I can't understand why it would look better to have a gap in a person's employment history rather than a surprise job. The thing is, if written well, that surprise job could actually bring a lot of capital to that candidate's resume. Because you think about it, let's say, okay, let's give an example to this. Let's say the person is in human resources, started their career in human resources, 10 years later, they're in human resources. However, a couple of years ago, this person decided to get out of human resources for whatever reason, and they took a sales job. Okay, quite different than human resources. Instead of leaving that off so that you didn't have to, apologize for an odd career, I say, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that job. What did you learn from that job? What skills did you have to develop in that job that you didn't previously have from human resources? The cool thing is, once you develop those skills from a different industry, you get to now bring those into this new industry. You don't stop possessing skills even if they're not part of your normal job description. So to me, that's something really cool that we could capitalize on and make you look like a much more well-rounded and skilled, um, diversely skilled candidate, right? So, in this case, human resources with a little bit of sales. Well, sales is having to do a lot of needs analysis of clients, presentations, maybe some public speaking, maybe some contract negotiations, maybe learning how to overcome objections and get a yes instead of a no. Um, Let's see, some sales positions there is a lot of, paperwork, reports and stuff like that. So there could be new tech tools that were learned, in Excel or Word or, whatever that human resources wasn't using, whatever it is. What are those skills that we can now bring into that human resources resume that kind of make you that candidate plus? Because you do have this extra experience. Okay, so that third one, is there something of value in your background that's unique to the normal industry route? That is usually one of my favorite questions to ask a job seeker, because I get such great answers. And like I said, we can just really create an abundance of unique and interesting information that other candidates probably won't have on their resume. Again, that's another great way to create that face time, putting something a little bit unexpected, some extra skills that other candidates don't have. That's going to get you that extra face time right there. So that's no imps allowed. All right, so let's continue here. All right, so we're going to go quickly through. I'm not going to read these out because then I'll lose my voice, but you can read along here with the screen, and I'll just kind of like a little bit just cover what we're talking about. Here are some before and afters. Actual clients, I changed the afters just a little bit, just so there was no way that my clients could be identified. My clients were extremely generous in allowing me to use their materials here for the purposes of your education. So this one that we've got, marketing communications leader, 15 plus years of experience in client consultations, branding and logos, and trade shows. Now, if anyone listening to this is in marketing communications, you may say, yeah, client consultations, branding, logos, trade shows, those are all important, but that's kind of like marketing 101, right? This person has to have done more, especially with 15 plus years in the industry. Okay, so let's see what we did with this client once we asked all the right questions and decided to tell a really interesting story. All right, so we're going to talk as a marketing communications expert. I've got equal skills in the technical side of marketing. And by technical, by the way, we're talking updated skills, social media, e-marketing campaigns, as well as traditional media advertisement, print collateral, and trade shows. Okay, so in that before one, they really were talking about the earlier stuff and leaving off all the social media, all the internet based work that they do. Okay, that was a big mistake. Sales background, organization abilities, visual skills, writing talents, all combined to drive winning solutions. Take one note here, because if you look at this summary, it might look long. Okay, some people think, well, are thinking, that looks a little long to me. But you know what? I think let's count. One, two, three. The first one is a longer sentence, but 3 sentences. So you know how that looks on a regular piece of paper. It didn't take up the full page or anything like that. It took up a very small space, but we told a good story. And if you take a look at this, we also start incorporating the keywords, those critical keywords, right at the very top. So right off the bat, that ATS, that resume, the keyword scanner is going to start checking off the keywords. All right, so we are capitalizing on every bit of real estate that we've got by starting the keywords early. Let's do another one here. A real estate broker seeking to expand to a manager's role. Well, ho hum, boring, objective, doesn't say anything, doesn't tell any great story. Okay, but after a few questions, we actually found that there was some interesting stuff to talk about. So, and as you see here, remember I said your human voice summary, we are using the summary statement to speak in first person voice. We are using pronouns. I know I'm breaking a resume rule, but we've been doing this for almost 20 years. So it's not really even groundbreaking anymore. And it works. It works because people like reading a story, a first person narrative. Okay, so in this case, my experience as a real estate broker is complemented with management, marketing, customer service. Throughout my career, 3 things have been consistent. Now, I like this because it kind of gets the person's 3 things. So what's that going to be? Ability to listen and understand others' needs, unique tactics in marketing, and the drive to achieve performance goals. All of that, manager 101, right? Fantastic. Whether I'm leading a team or building a custom website to sell a home, I bring my focus, energy, and creativity. Deploying social media and new technology. So again, we're able to talk about this person's breadth and depth of their expertise on the job. And if you happen to notice, these people all seem like people, I think we've gone through 2 now, so I shouldn't say all, but these candidates, you would think after reading these, they are hardworking, loyal. What were some of the others? Finish projects on time and under budget and all those things. Do you see how we don't have to use those tired buzzwords? We can say those same things by telling a better story. Okay, by really going in, and this is where we're telling that story behind the story. Okay, so we're able to use keywords and storytelling to create that face time. Let's take another one here. Oh, award-winning CMO, and this is actually what was on this gentleman's resume. Award-winning CMO with 14 years experience. CMO, if you're not familiar, is a Chief Marketing Officer. So we've got another marketing officer person, and this was his before, and then it just went into his experience. When I talked to this gentleman, this was a really exciting project because he had done so many fantastic things in his career, and we had a lot of fun with it. But so let's see what his summary looks like here. I'm a marketing executive who is unabashedly zealous about creating revenue and skilled at executing national integrated marketing programs, brand strategies, and positioning tactics that maximize profitability. Lots of keywords in there, and keywords at that executive level. Okay, I believe that real numbers and good data steer good decisions and use them to understand the key drivers of business. So now we're talking about the nuts and the bolts of what this guy is really good at. Now, here's what I want to share with you. This is, and if you've ever seen me speak before, you might have actually heard me talk about this because this is one of my favorite examples. But I like to refer people back up to the first sentence where I say I'm a marketing executive who is unabashedly zealous about creating revenue, et cetera, et cetera. Unabashedly zealous. I love this phrase. And my client is the one who came up with it. when I asked my client those, what do you love about your job? And, all those questions that I ask, one of the things that this client said is, I want all of my employers to know that I'm unabashedly zealous about making them money. And I just, the angelic chorus started singing, and I actually wrote down the words unabashedly zealous because I just loved that phrase. It's almost a dare, isn't it? And so when he saw that I used it, he absolutely loved it. Now, here's what I want to say, because I know because I've had this conversation enough, that there are some of you watching this who does not like the phrase unabashedly zealous. And that's okay. That's all right. I totally get it. I would not use this phrase with everybody. I would not say, I would not say I'm a dental hygienist who is unabashedly zealous about flossing. I don't know. But for him, it worked. He was a marketer who had created and believed in a lot of big concepts, big marketing concepts, a lot of national campaigns. So for him, that big kind of, bombastic phrase worked for him very, very well. And the rest of the resume followed up with a lot of great bullets and awards and etc. So we had a lot of fun with this one. The reason I put this in here, by the way, it's almost a challenge. If you're watching this, my challenge to you is you don't have to use this exact phrase, but what is it in your work that you are unabashedly zealous about? When you go to work, what is it that you're looking to accomplish? What do you love about your job? That's where that message starts. Okay. So even if you hate the phrase unabashedly zealous, and let me know. I actually love hearing from people on this one, if they liked it, if they didn't like it, and why. But even if you don't like this phrase, use it as a reminder to say, this is the type of message that my employer wants to see. They do want to see what areas of my job gives me energy and joy, and that the projects that I love to do and that I'm good at doing. That's, if you don't get anything else from the phrase unabashedly zealous, just let that be your reminder. Okay. Now I put in my own. I think it's only fair. Other people let me share theirs, so I'm going to share mine too. So, coffee break. So as you can see with my own resume, and I do have a resume. I know plenty of resume writers who say, I don't have a resume. I'm the cobbler, cobbler's kids with no shoes, but I do have a resume. And I change it. I change it depending on who is going to be getting it. So I do change my summary from time to time based on the audience, but in general, it's going to say approximately the same thing, such as this. As a business owner, I combine my unique expertise as a top-rated career coach with my skills in business operations, sales, and HR. I consistently deliver inventive and strategic solutions to my clients' job search challenges, resulting in extremely satisfied clients who don't have to compromise on salary or career level. Now, someone may look at that and say, well, that sounds a little braggy. Yeah, maybe it is. I'm a resume writer. But I'm also telling my story through the success of my clients. Okay. And that's actually the point there. And so think about that. If your job is extremely client driven, you can tell your story through the success of your clients. Likewise, if you are an executive assistant, okay, an executive assistant or a personal assistant or an administrative assistant, you can talk about your successes through the successes of the people that you work for. Okay, so think about that. That's kind of a neat trick here. Um, yeah, after years in the trenches, I've taken on the role of instructor at College of DuPage and what I'm doing here, workshop presenter and speaker for dozens of professional groups, frequent contributor to local and national media stories. So again, here I'm touching on a lot of different things that people look to me for, or they're looking for people who do these things, and I kind of give them this one-stop shop. But I'm able to do that and relay a lot of different concepts in one paragraph because each one is telling its own, its own story. And I can do it in just a couple sentences. So that's my challenge to you. And as a matter of fact, the handout that I believe that that Patty shared with everybody, there is a little bit, I created a little bit of a template there to get you started. But then ask yourself those questions. What about your work brings you energy and joy? What do you love to do? Where do you want to take your career in this particular industry? And is there something different in your background that you can talk about that's going to separate you from the rest of the pack? Okay, that's where you start with this. And by the way, worth mentioning, this is just the summary. This is just the first 3 to 5 sentences on your resume. So that's why I say in my mind, the summary statement really is the most important part of a resume because it sets it up. You see how the summaries, the after summaries that we've given here, it really sets up a good story that then will be continued to be told in the bullets that you write. Okay, so let's talk about those. Oops, this is the template. All right, so now we're going to go to the body of the resume. And we're going to create bullets that have a little bit of punch to them, a little bit of kapow. All right. This is not an all-inclusive list by any means. However, it's a great start. And then every single industry is going to, every single role or job or industry is going to have their own set of questions. But getting started with these are kind of general to any kind of industry out there. These are great questions to ask yourself. So let's go over this. You want to identify times that you've dealt with crisis situations, times that you have juggled priorities. Let's see. If you have, if you've ever been one of the employees to be retained during a layoff. Layoffs are always crisis situations. So if you were the one who was retained, you probably had to deal with that crisis situation. You probably had priorities to juggle around, because maybe then you had to take on additional responsibilities that you didn't have to do the day or week before. So make sure to talk about that. By the way, this brings up a good point. One of the things that I have realized over the years is that people who have survived layoffs, meaning they were still retained afterwards, they do take on new responsibilities, but very rarely do they actually talk about those in the resume. And when I ask job seekers about this, it's not because they don't want to talk about it because it might be an unpleasant topic or anything. They don't really think about it. So it's almost like it's an oversight. Okay, if that's the case, if you've ever absorbed anyone else's responsibilities and you're now using skills that you didn't necessarily use a week or month before, talk about that on your resume. That's almost like what I talked about, the different industry route. You're gaining extra experience that other people who didn't go through that experience just may not have. So make sure to go through and really think about what that meant, the new responsibilities that you had to do, and give yourself credit for it. Okay. The next one, changing course to deal with changed circumstances. Boy, as a resume writer, when this happens, it's not necessarily an emergency. So there are certainly other industries that have to be, much more responsive to this. But I do have situations from time to time when a client, we've gone through the resume questions and we're writing the resume, and they'll call me up and they'll say, "Hey, Lauren, after doing a lot of soul searching, I've decided I'm going to change directions. I'm going to look at, I'm going to take a marketing course. Instead of going into dental dentistry, I'm going to take a marketing course." And, that's kind of a exaggerated example here, but I have clients who change the plan, change the project at the 11th hour. If you have, what was that? What happened? How did you kind of pivot and go with that and keep things on track and get that project over the finish line? Talk about that. These are the stories that employers really, really like to talk about, because employers know these things happen all the time. They want someone who has successfully navigated that before. Okay. The next one, working with difficult client or internal situations. Now, this is kind of an important one, because we've all dealt with negativity at work. That's not what I'm talking about. You don't want to focus on difficult people. The moment you do, you just became the negative person. Okay, so whether it's in the resume, whether it's in the interview, you're not focusing on people. Focus on the situation. Okay. And talk about how you want to think about this difficult situation and how you fixed it, not just how you dealt with it, but how you fixed it. What skills did you use to do that? Did you delegate? Did you bring in other people who were more suited, more skilled at working with this new situation? Whatever it is, but how did you um, keep that project on track across the finish line, even though some challenges were thrown in your way? The next one, cost savings, profit generation, financial astuteness. The language of business is money. Okay, so even if you were not in sales, even if you weren't working with budgets, remember the language of business is money. So anytime that you saved the company money, anytime you worked to change a process that saves some personnel hours, whatever it is, maybe you caught an error, uh, in an invoice or some budget line item, whatever it is, talk about that. Okay, figure out what that meant in money, and you'll see in a moment that's very, very important. The last one here, improving a company's competitive stance. Did you do something that actually made your employer more competitive? Um, did you do something that earned the company a little bit more market share? What was that? Okay. Um, and again, these can be internal issues. They can be, external where customers saw them. They could just be internal processes. Um, Nothing that had to have been, reported on the news or anything like that. Um, but think about that. Anytime that you did these things, what did it actually mean for the company? Okay. So, and this is, by the way, again, this is just a really short list. The actual list, when I'm talking to people about their specific industry, about their specific role, this list is longer and much more specific to that particular role. But this is just a good starter list. And once you start thinking about these, you are going to think of more situations. I promise you, because that's what happens every single time. Now, we'll flip over to here because we have the almighty dollar sign. Again, the language of business is money. So anytime, and I've got a little rhyme that I'll share with you. Anytime you have kept a dollar from walking out the door or created a dollar that didn't exist before. Okay. Anytime that you have favorably impacted the company's bottom line, and it does not have to be on a large scale, but anytime you've done something that, like I said, created a dollar that did not exist before, kept a dollar from walking out the door, you want to talk about it on your resume. As an example, a couple years ago, I was doing an outplacement project for a company. They laid off some customer service people. To make a long story short, there was one employee, she improved part of the company's customer service software. Okay, it was kind of an older system. She made a suggestion. It made the customer service department, all the customer service reps' lives much easier, saved them a couple hours every single week in redundancies and all sorts of crazy stuff. Just really nice, some automated things that she was able to design. And in the end, I want to say it was something like we figured out that it saved in personnel hours. It saved the company not much, maybe $30,000 or $40,000 a year. Okay, so not huge numbers. But again, she was in customer service. So the fact that she was able to say that and honestly, truly say that she saved the company $30,000 to $40,000 was huge. And it turns out that even though that didn't really have much to do with customer service, in her interviews that she went on, every single employer wanted to talk about that specific story. So she got a lot of mileage out of it. And like I said, she was kind of nervous about it because she said, but it's not really about customer service. I don't design websites. So the fact that I helped with the company's website shouldn't be on my resume. I said, well, let's just try it and we'll see. And she came back saying every single employer wants to talk about this and they really think it's a great story. So don't discount those things, especially if money is involved. And again, this is just what we were talking about. So even if you are not in sales, you just really want to focus on times that you can bring those dollars into your resume. Okay. Now, here is an exercise that I'm going to challenge everybody to do throughout this week and into the next week, however long it's going to take you. I call it the 2 questions exercise. What I want you to do is take your resume out and whether you like to create new content on your laptop, on good old-fashioned paper and pen, whatever it is, you're going to get your resume out and you're going to go through every single bullet. You're going to read the first one, the first bullet on your resume, and say, so what were the results of this work? Write that down. You may have to think about it a little bit. That's okay. And if you either get stuck, or once you've been able to write down a couple of the results, you're going to ask this next question. Why was this work important? Okay, so what were the results of this work, and why was this work important? Go through every single bullet on your resume. Take some time with this. This is not something to be rushed, not something to do like, if you've got an extra 5 minutes in your day or something. You need to set time for this. And it's worthy of the time. Trust me, it's worthy. The results that you will get from this, you will be happy that you set the time aside. Okay. But again, you're just going to go through every single bullet and you're going to ask yourself, what were the results of this work? And then why was this work important? A couple of things will happen. Number one, hopefully, you'll start creating a lot of good results. You'll come up with, okay, wait, yeah, there was, this is how the company benefited from it, or I kept this client from going to a competitor. I was able to successfully negotiate this contract, whatever it was, but it's going to get you in the mindset of thinking about results and accomplishments and achievements and impact. Okay, that's the frame of mind that you need to be in, first of all. But you're also going to identify a couple of bullets on your resume that there just simply are not any results associated with them. Well, if that's the case, my question is, does that bullet then really belong on your resume? The answer is yes, only if this bullet enables you to bring in some keywords that maybe you weren't able to bring in otherwise. That's debatable, because I think the keywords should be tied with accomplishments and achievements, and reverse. But so that's what you have to think through. If you're reading a bullet and you say, you know what, this is really just more of a job description than it is accomplishment based. That's when you have to say, okay, is there another benefit to keeping us on, or is this really just a job search, a job description, and there's just really no other capital that I can get from having this on? If that's the case, then eliminate that bullet. That's how you go from having like a 3 or 4 page resume to a 1 or a 2 page resume, by getting rid of a lot of clutter that isn't getting you anything else except taking up space. All right. Let's see. Okay, so that in a sense is what I've got for you. Oh, that's little Gemma that you met earlier. Here's my contact information. Now I want to go back and stop the sharing. So Patty, I'm not sure if I see that you're on mute, and there you are.
I'm
Hi.
here.
All right, so I can go in much more detail, but I was wondering if we were getting any questions that I could take at this point.
We are getting some questions. Yes, I put into the chat that any questions that come in either through Zoom attendees, or also those that are participating on the broadcast on YouTube, that we will address those at the end. So let's see. I think we started off with one. The first question that came in was through a chat, and a question was, so should we use words that are in the job description in the resume?
Okay. I love this question, because the answer is, it depends. Isn't that like the most obvious and worst answer ever? But not every job description is written well, unfortunately. There isn't a school where people go to learn how to write fantastic job descriptions, unfortunately. It's just like there isn't a school that people go to learn how to be great interviewers. Sometimes people just do what they've seen be done before them. So a job description, or a job ad, I should say, can be really poorly written. And in that case, you need to do a better job than the job ad. Okay. And that's where, so yes, you could take some of those words. However, you also do have to be able to distinguish, okay, which of these, which of these are actually going to be keywords, which of these are just kind of fluffy words that they put in there, and it will not help me whatsoever. That's where you distinguish between the buzzwords and the keywords. Okay. A lot of times I always ask my clients for at least 3 job leads that they want to apply for, and I take a look at them and I put them in. There are a couple different programs that we could talk about the following week. I can go into some detail about them. There are some ways that you can pull out those keywords to make sure that they get in your resume. But again, if you sometimes the last place that you need to look is the job ad. If you've already done a good job of identifying the keywords of your industry at your level, then you don't necessarily have to worry so much about trying to squeeze in words from the job description, especially if by your expertise, they really aren't the keywords at all. Okay. So that's why I say it depends. It really is one of those case by case circumstances, but the very first thing that you have to be able to see is this job ad that I'm looking at, did they do a good job of putting keywords in here in the first place? That's the first place to start. And then I would be able to give you my answer from there. I hope that makes sense. I hate the it depends answer, but it really does.
Okay, we have another question. If you have 25 years experience, is a one-page resume too short? Should it be 2 pages because you have so much to share?
Okay, so one of my favorite resumes that I ever wrote, and I still remember it to this day, it was for a gentleman who he was 75 years old. What he was doing was he was going for a board of directors role. He had worked for companies, huge consumer food companies like Jay's Potato Chips, big names, big name companies. 75 years old, so he had a full career. And guess what? He got a one-page resume. And I thought, this is a work of art. I actually should like frame this and put it up on my wall. I was so proud of it. So what you do is you tell your best story. Okay, you tell your best story. How long does that take? And then from there, you see what can be edited down. I really rarely, unless someone is a government contractor, um, maybe someone is, maybe someone's CV, they're in academia where they've done a ton of publishing and speaking and teaching, etc., where they have to have, a lot of things. But really, I think that a 2-page resume can tell anyone's best story. Kind of in tongue in cheek, I like to say, no one loves you that much except your mom, who, to read 3 pages. So if you can keep it to 2. Now, that being said, if you can get it down to 1 and you feel like you've done an excellent job, let's say that you've been in the same company. For me, I've ran ResuMAYDAY now for 20 years. So in a couple more years, when I have 25 years and I redo my resume, I'll bet you I'll still have a 1-page resume. I wasn't jumping around a lot, obviously, but who knows? So, yeah, 1, 2 pages when it's that long. Now, my other question is, do you need to go back 25 years? Okay, that's actually the first question that first kind of came into my mind. So why are we going back that long? I'm not saying you can't. It's just there has to be a reason to justify going back 25 years, because think about it. The way that we manage people, the way that we communicate with people, the way that we manage our work and our jobs have changed so much over the past 2 decades that the way that we were working 25 years ago, how relevant is that today? Is that work that you were doing 25 years ago going to get you that job today? Probably not. So that's the first thing. Do we really need to go back that far in the first place?
Should we be targeting each resume to each job ad?
Okay, so it depends. How many times can I get away with saying that tonight? Yes, to a point. If you have, let me see, Bill. Okay, Bill. I love this question. And here's how I want to answer this. If you've done a really good job of identifying your accomplishments, your achievements, all the right keywords, there's a really good chance that you're not going to have to change the resume all that much. Think about it in this way. Accomplishments and achievements, they jump borders. Okay, by borders, I mean industry borders. So even if you are looking to transition to a different kind of industry or a different kind of job, if you accomplished a bunch of great things at this job, it's it's a good bet that you'll be able to continue accomplishing great things, right? So if your resume likewise reflects all of these accomplishments and achievements, you're not going to have to repackage every single thing so specifically to that new industry. Because again, achievements and accomplishments will cross industry borders, and that same message will resonate for a variety of different employers. However, if you didn't go through this and you've got your resume that is really just not much more than a job descriptions, they don't get to cross industry borders because a job description for one job isn't going to be relevant whatsoever to a different industry or a completely different job. That's why, number one, you want to focus on your accomplishments and your achievements with the 2 questions exercise. Now, what I usually tell people is that the body of the resume, even if you're applying to a couple different, differences in each job or industry, whatever it is, but you're focused, you're applying obviously for things that are going to be using your core skills. The body of the resume probably won't have to change all that much. If anything, you may change the order of some bullets because some are going to be prioritized over others. The main difference, the main change that you're going to make is in your summary statement. That's really where you want to shift around the messaging. That's why I love the summary statement so much. It kind of let's see, it acts as an introduction. It kind of sets up what the reader should expect to find throughout the rest of the resume. So if you were going to change, if you were going to transfer to a different industry, or you're looking, you've got a couple different job leads that you're responding to, you can touch on that particular job, but then focus on I'm oh gosh, let me do this really quickly off the top of my head. I'll pick an easy one. I'm a sales leader whose skills in client consultations, contract negotiations, and needs analysis will seamlessly translate to a marketing role. La la la. Okay, so that's how you would change the summary, but the body of the resume wouldn't necessarily have to change. And remember, your career history is your career history is your career history. So when I hear of people who have, oh, I've got 4 or 5, 6 versions of my resume, it's like, well, why? Unless you've had like 2 concurrent careers going on at the same time, most people don't have that. You really don't need, you just need a well-written resume where the summary can be tweaked a little bit, but the body of the resume, it's not going to change all that much.
Is it negative to apply for multiple positions in large corporations?
It is not negative whatsoever. One of the, in my, actually in my summary that we were going through, I shared that I'm an instructor at College of DuPage. And so anytime there's a job opening at COD, they send out emails, and a lot of these jobs are exactly the same, but in different departments. So when I tell my clients if any of them would be a good fit for the COD jobs, I'll tell them this. and they can apply different times. Now, here's the catch to that, and it's not necessarily a negative catch. So there really is no problem with doing this. However, with technology, a lot of times companies now, all of their open positions will be centralized into their ATS. Let me explain. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking Software, in case you need to know that.
And we're going to go into that into even more detail next week on the 10th.
Exactly. So the good thing is this ATS can serve as a clearinghouse. So let's say Motorola. Motorola is a huge company, huge divisions, hundreds of thousands of jobs, unless they're going through one of their famous layoffs, but we won't talk about that. So if someone applies for this particular job and they would be a really good fit for this other job in this other division, it's very likely that they would already be considered for that position without the candidate even knowing. And that's how some candidates will get a call from a company or an email, and they'll say, hey, we'd like to talk to you about this position. And the candidate is like, wait a minute, I didn't even apply for that one. How did you know? It's all ATS. ATS has its little spider legs out going in a lot of different directions. So that's actually kind of a benefit to candidates out there. It could mean that your job got a little bit easier when there are multiple jobs in a company that you're interested in.
All right, I'm going into that. I've been taking a lot of questions from the chat. Now I'm going to take them from the Q&A portion of it. This question's a little detailed. I'm struggling with balancing bullet points covering both hard and soft skills that are relevant to the position I'm applying to. It seems as though the kapow bullet points fall more into telling a story and leaning on a soft skill. With limited space for getting the point across, what tips do you have for finding this balance?
Okay. That was detailed. However, I think I kept up with it. So I would give some pushback, although I like the question. I would give a little pushback that the kapow really favors soft skills over tactical skills. I've been doing this long enough where I can just say with great confidence say that's not necessarily the case. However, it's probably new, so don't worry about it. I understand what you're saying, but you want to, it is storytelling. Not long storytelling. It's a very abbreviated, teeny little story, because it's, one, maybe two sentences per bullet. But that's where you kind of measure out and say, okay, what's my A+ information here that has to be on this resume versus what's the stuff that can kind of start falling away? What's the older stuff? What's the less impressive stuff? Can I combine any of these things? I see resumes where they'll have 4 or 5 bullets that are virtually saying the same thing, but just with one or two slight differences. Well, sometimes the devil's in the details. You can take some of that out and be a little bit more general, say what you were saying in 4 or 5 bullets in one, but just make it known that you're covering a couple different areas of accomplishments or successes, whatever that is. But you really do want to figure out how to work in both the soft and the tactical keywords in every single bullet. It's just a writing exercise that I promise you'll get used to after you do it a couple times.
Okay, what tips do you have for recent graduates with limited industry experience?
Okay, I just had this conversation today with one of my coaching clients. One of those situations where I worked with this kid's father, and this father said, "Oh, this is fantastic, Lauren. I love this. You know what? Get this kid off my couch." I'm putting him in your hands. So now I'm coaching this recent graduate. One of the things that I absolutely love. So we don't have to get all generational here, but I will share this with you. I am Gen X. One thing that Gen X and boomers don't have that millennials and now Gen Z trumps us, just does so much of a better job than us older folks, is volunteering. And I just learned recently that for the past couple of years, kids, it would be a requirement to graduate high school that they had a certain number of volunteer hours. How cool is that? I think that is just absolutely awesome. What I'm also learning from talking to this generation is that a lot of them do continue this volunteering. You know, the outreach, programs, whether it's Habitat for Humanities or Meals on Wheels, whatever it is. My client this afternoon, um, been working with a couple of landscape. He's into landscaping, so he did some landscape work, and he's considering doing Big Brothers Big Sisters. And I asked him, like, you're really doing this? He goes, oh yeah, I can't wait to do this. And it's like, it's just this inherent thing in this younger generation, which I applaud so much. So that's one of the first things I would say. What volunteerism have you done? The other thing, we can really expand your education section. Whereas someone who graduated, 5, 10, 15 years ago, we don't, that's when you want to start minimizing the education, because the professional work kind of makes that a little less important, right? But if you're a recent graduate, let's talk about those classes that you took that directly deal with the job that you're looking for. Let's talk about the class projects that you did, or any papers that you wrote, anything like that. Maybe you did some internships that we can draw out a lot of experience with the internships. So for me, it's a couple things. With recent grads, you want to talk about the volunteerism, those extra kind of projects. You want to really draw out the education section. And then lastly, just remember, on a resume for an entry level, for a recent grad, they are not your employers are not expecting you to have all the answers. They are not expecting you to come in at a level you just wouldn't have had that experience by then. They want recent graduates who are able to show that they are able to learn, able to be mentored, excellent communication skills. So let's focus on those. Let's focus on the work, the projects that you did, where we can display and illustrate those more entry level skills. There's just a lot of latitude that you get at this point in your career that us old fogies have been around for a long time. We don't have that latitude anymore, because we need those skills, whereas you're still developing them.
All right, we still have 3 questions going, and I'll give you an opportunity to catch your breath and take a sip. Let's see here. I do have a question from an attendee. As an educator, should I have a resume and a CV?
Oh, okay. Interestingly enough, so a CV, for those who don't know, a CV, curriculum vitae, is a much longer version of a resume, and professionals who typically need a CV, educators, people in academia, lawyers, doctors, there are probably some others, but I'm kind of blanking. But in general, that's who needs the CV. So the interesting thing, though, is that people who historically needed CVs don't as much anymore. It depends on where you are looking to apply. I write both. We write both when someone needs it. But by and large, I'm actually seeing a lot more of my educators. They don't need all that stuff, or they'll say, well, we can put all of my published works on my LinkedIn page. They don't need to be on the resume. So from what I've seen, it's shifting. It's shifting from a CV to a resume. So what I've been doing with those people is we'll write the full CV, but those extra sections that make that CV longer than a resume, that's going to be on its own page, where it could be sent if needed. It could be taken off as needed. And like I said, we're going to put all of that additional information anyway on a document. We're going to upload it to the person's LinkedIn page, where someone just clicks to see the uploaded media, and it's going to show up on the screen. So, I don't think you need both. I would say, go with the longer CV, but prepare more often than not to really just send out the resume. That's even with university professors, we've been able, at the request of the university, we haven't needed to send all of that extensive information anymore. So Who knows? Have it ready in case it's asked for. There you go.
Okay. Now I'm going to tap on over. I've been also trying to monitor what's happening on YouTube, so I'm going to take a look and see. We had a question that came up. When do a list of references appear in a resume, or are they no longer needed in today's resume?
Okay, so there are, maybe we can, well, we can talk a little bit about this tonight, but possibly next week too. There are maybe about 10, maybe more things that are age triggers, okay? Meaning things that candidates do in their resume or on the application or somehow that indicates that they are an older candidate. And I have to tread very carefully here because I'm not trying to show preference to anybody. However, ageism, it's a real thing. We all know that. I'm not getting into that debate. But either including the references with your resume or adding that one sentence, references furnished upon request, that's an age trigger. Don't put those on your resume, not only because they're an age trigger and you just want to steer away from those, but also, my goodness, people who have actually agreed to be a reference for you, treat those people like gold. Okay, because they are, they're doing something wonderful for you. You have to respond in kind. And what that means, protect their information with integrity. Put it in the vault. You don't share that person's information, that person's contact information, unless and until it's specifically requested by the employer. Now, some employers will say include your references information. Well, then you can. But until you know that employer wants that information, don't share, that your references, emails, and phone numbers do not need to be floating around for nothing. Okay, so just really treat that information with integrity and respect and in confidence.
Okay, and we have one more. I got to go back to YouTube. Excuse me just for bouncing back and forth. I just want to make sure that I get everyone.
Okay, and I see one on the chat too. So let's
Okay.
cover the YouTube one and then we'll go back to the chat.
All right, let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so we got the personal references. We did have someone that was asking if we were going to cover cover letters tonight, and I said I do not expect that we're going to be covering cover letters in detail tonight.
Can I do a 30 seconds on it?
You could do as long as, yes, absolutely. The floor is yours, my friend. And here I am. I'm over in chat just directing people to the public library shelves of the Dewey numbers. I kind of roll through my brain on cover letters and resumes, but nothing is better than the real thing. So
okay. All right. Well, let's talk about cover letters and then we'll take the other question too. Okay, so here's the interesting thing about cover letters. There's an organization called SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management, and they poll. They poll and survey employers to find out what American employers are doing in the upcoming year, et cetera, et cetera. One of the questions that they always ask employers is how many of you read or require or read cover letters from your candidates. Interestingly, a large majority of them require or expect, even if they don't ask for it, they expect a cover letter. But guess what? Only on average 16% of employers state that they read cover letters. But we don't know which 16. What that means is you send in a cover letter each and every time. But I'm going to break it down for you and make it really, really simple. Okay, so 3 paragraphs. 3 paragraphs. Everybody can do 3 paragraphs. So simple, right? So the first paragraph, you list out what you know and love about the company. Okay? List out what you know and love about the company, even if it sounds too brown nosy. I don't care. First paragraph, what you know and love about the company. Flattery will get you everywhere. Second paragraph, what you know about their problem. I'll explain that in a minute. What you know about the problem and how you are going to help solve their problem. Okay. And here's what I mean about problem. Companies have no need to hire if they don't have a problem. It could be a great problem. It could be this company just created the next app that every single person is downloading onto their phone, and now they need people to, maintain it and troubleshoot it and sell it and update it, blah blah blah, right? Well, if they don't get those people and that app isn't properly supported in house, the app is going to fail, and then that's a bad problem, right? So companies only hire when they've got a problem. Find out, if you can, find out what that problem is. Okay. uh, Research the company online. And by the way, when you're researching a company, don't just go to a Google page and type in the company's name, because if it's a company like Motorola, the first 40 pages of what you pull up is going to be generated by Motorola itself, right? And you're going to be directed to different places in their websites, and you're just going to fall down a rabbit hole and not get the information you're looking for. What you want to do first is pull up a Google News page. So type in Google News, and then that's going to bring up another search box, and then you type in. So if you were going to do that, you would pull up a Google News page and then type in Motorola. Anytime Motorola has been talked about in a newspaper or by other media, etc., that's going to come up. So it's other people generating news about Motorola. And it's very likely that you might find some kind of press release or story or article or interview that gives you an insight to what's going on in the company as introduced by other people. So that is a great place, great kind of secret place to go find out. If people are, if you want to find out more than just what Motorola is telling you. Did you have a question about that,
You know what?
Patty?
I'm gonna do a little plug right here. Well, tell me again that wonderful phrase that you used. Something zealous. What was it?
Oh, unabashedly zealous.
Okay, I am unabashedly zealous about assisting patrons in preparing for the job interview and doing that industry, company, um, uh, market research that needs to be done to help you stand out as a stronger candidate. What you're advising is spot on, but there's a wealth of information that we can help you with just to become a very, you want to have all those um, answers that when it's your turn to ask the questions in an interview, you have really well structured point on questions that are directly relatable. They're not fluff questions, they're concrete, they're tangible, and they're based on very thorough research to stand out as a candidate. So if you're going to do the background research on a company, on a position, on the who's who, I am going to encourage, if it's not Schaumburg Library, please go see your home library, or you're welcome to work with librarians remotely. And we are unabashedly zealous in this particular area. Thank
I
you.
love that. And you know what, though, Patty, you're absolutely right, because you guys have resources, you have references that go way beyond Google, and you've got, I mean, if I wanted to, I probably could find out some of the same information, but what's going to take me 3 or 4 or more hours of research, you probably could pull it up with one, with one little search. So absolutely, all of those references that a library has, it's crazy. And all the government publications put up in different industries that talk about like the forecasts and the trends and the money and everything. Yeah, phenomenal resources. So absolutely go to your librarian as well. So that kind of got me into a rabbit hole while we were talking about the second page, second paragraph of the cover letter. But you want to bring in some of this stuff, and this is why I say you're going to research the problem that the company is having. Again, good problem, and say, hey, I'm familiar with this app. I've downloaded, I use it myself. I'm a big fan. And interestingly enough, I have a lot of, I have extensive experience in app development, or, whatever you want to talk about. But you bring in your particular skills as a solution to whatever potential problem they're having. Third, that's the second paragraph. Third paragraph, ask for the interview. That's it. That's it. Just, I'll be more than happy to make my schedule available to you. I look forward to your call, and I look forward to, jumping onto a Zoom call for an interview and discussing how we might be a great match for each other. Just something like that. doesn't have to be complicated. I cannot tell you over the years how many times people have said, I actually think my resume is great. It's the cover letter that I struggle with. So really don't struggle with that anymore. 3 simple paragraphs. Again, 1, what you know and love about the company. Number 2, how you can help solve the company's problem. And 3, ask for the interview. Now, interestingly enough, keep in mind the main subject of your cover letter should be the employer. Your resume is all about you. The last 2 words of resume is ME, right? My resume is all about me. Well, you know what? Make the cover letter all about the employer. And here is an exercise. When I'm teaching this in an actual physical class, and I've got people, 20, 25 people in a class, I will have everyone bring the last cover letter that they sent. And I'll have everyone just reading it to themselves. So we've got 25 people and they're all just kind of reading it to themselves. But anytime they say the words or read the words, I, me, or my, they actually have to take their hand and slam it on the desk. And it's a great way to illustrate how much we make ourselves the center of the sentences that we write. And it should just be the opposite. So I'm actually going to put that challenge out to everyone who's listening to this tonight. Take a look at the last cover letter that you sent out, read through it. And if you're alone, you can read it out loud. Or if you're not alone, read it out loud. What do I care? But either way, anytime in your cover letter that you get to the words I, me, or my, you're going to take your hand and slam it on the table. I'm not going to do it right here because I'll topple my laptop. But that's gonna be a physical, a tactile, what's the word I'm looking for? Tactile experience, tactile proof of how many times that you use the words I, me, or my. And then what you do, go back to those sentences and rewrite them so that you are not the main noun in that sentence. Keep it focused on the employer. I promise you it will pay off.
I think we have one question remaining, and I'm going to scroll back up to try to hone in on that. An attendee is asking, if you have worked for the same company for 30 years and your job was eliminated due to company restructuring and you're applying for jobs within the same company, do we need to have a LinkedIn page? It says linked page, but I think the attendee means a LinkedIn page.
Sure. I think everybody needs a LinkedIn page. There's no reason. There's no reason not to be on LinkedIn. First of all, because what if this employer doesn't rehire you? You're going to have to look externally as well, right? Well, guess what? 100% of recruiters use LinkedIn. There isn't a recruiter out there who isn't. I'm not saying they only use LinkedIn because I was a recruiter before LinkedIn. So I know that recruiters have other ways of connecting with candidates, but every single recruiter right now uses LinkedIn. There's no reason not to be on it. That's my answer. That's it. Just get on LinkedIn.
It's a yes. It's a yes. Okay. Well, you know what? I am going to, we're coming up to about 8 o'clock. And I think we've covered all the questions that that have come through you. And I will say during the shelter in place, while we are offering remote sessions, which we may continue to do, even as we move in through different phases in the future, I can say that the library has welcomed some wonderful presenters, and of which you are certainly one of our wonderful presenters, and we're so glad you're coming back next week. But if I had an award to give the presenter that received the highest volume of incoming questions, Lauren Milligan, I think that would go to you, because you really received.
Love that.
I have never talked so much in any of the sessions that I've offered, being the moderator.
Thank you,
I'm the Phil Donahue of the
everybody.
questions.
Let's run across it. I see. Here's the thing. I understand the Phil Donahue reference.
Oh, okay. So I've just dated myself, but
that's a generational thing for sure, right?
And in your
No, that's
summary,
fantastic.
you use some really good words in your summary. And one of my favorite books in the library, of course, is a thesaurus, because I love different ways of saying things. But one of the phrases you used is "in the trenches," and I think from
Mm.
tonight's presentation, it really shows that you have been in the trenches.
Ah,
Because yeah, you are speaking directly from experience, and I know that I appreciate it, being the librarian that's bringing this session and kicking off our series. And I think that all of our attendees that have been on the Zoom call, and we've had almost a dozen on YouTube, and others that are going
great,
to
great.
watch it on YouTube. This is going to stay out there for another couple weeks or so, kind of an undefined amount of time, just because the value is there for them as well if they weren't able to make it tonight.
Well, I'll tell you something. The questions, I love questions because it just makes my job that much easier, to be honest with you. And I would much rather answer questions that people have instead of, kind of rattling off what I think people want to know. So, questions, love them, bring them on. And by the way, if I didn't get to your question tonight, come back next time, because obviously, as you see, let's do more questions. And because I'm happy with that, so
So
love it.
next week we're going to be talking again, also about resumes, but about ATS, which you had brought up tonight, about the use of social media and also Google tools to use in the resume, and in the need for the resume and how they can be applied.
Yeah, and that's there's some really fun and unexpected and kind of counterintuitive ones that I'm going to give, but it's just a way to you use the things that we have at our disposal in really interesting and productive ways.
So now is the time, even though the question time has passed, this is the time for appreciation. And so, let that all flow in your direction, Resume Day, because you're getting thanks from a lot of patrons coming in here. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you. Very informative. Thank you very much. Our YouTube participants said, great advice on cover letters. I never thought about that. Should be employee centered. Thank you very much for offering this learning opportunity and sharing your expertise. It's been insightful. So from the patrons, from Patty, from the library, thank you. This was fantastic. And we will see you a week from tonight, starting at 6:30.
Thank you so
Fantastic.
much, Patty. I appreciate. And again, guys, your questions are what makes me look really good, so I appreciate it so much.
I've got to come up with a more timely moderator than Donahue. Then I have
Oh,
to
I
think
love
about that. Maybe I'll go and ask some of the young ones in my family circle, who
They
would be
might say
more
Jerry
relevant.
Springer, so you may not want
No,
to ask.
no. The library has a great deal of integrity. We're going to keep that. But Lauren, really, this has been fun. It's been so informative, and I just
Great.
really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you
care,
so
everyone.
much.
Come visit us in the library. Take care.